Good afternoon all. Hope everyone is there. Continued from the last class. So in the last class, we are discussing about uncertainty for non-commuting operators, right? So we started from some variance equation here between two operators. Assumption is that they are non-commuting. That means AB minus BA should be not equal to 0. So for the variance, if we just estimate, that's the expression we know in terms of Kate-Bragg wave function, state vector. We have equation number 97. We have earlier we discussed. And then we just replaced this so-called variance, expectation of the variance. That means A minus average A. So that is R, and for B that is S. And then we can easily show that this thing 97 can be simply written as this way in terms of R and S. Square will be there because they are square. And since average of A, this is a measuring quantity operator, you are operating on that, whatever measured value you are getting, that is actually average. So average value you can easily, without any loss of any fundamental principles, you can consider them as a constants. So once you consider them constant, then if you try to find out AB minus BA, they are exactly equal to RS minus SR, because this part is constant, right? This is the expectation value of A, this is the expectation value of B, they are constant. Then you can easily say that whatever commutated relationship exists for A and B, same relationship will be existing for the R and S. Basically, in principle, they are equal. Now, we wanted to get what is the uncertainty in measurement, that is this delta A and delta B, how they are related, their variance, if some relationship is there or not, that is our goal to find out. So we just introduced one new operator, new function, I would say, state vector, that is just a linear superposition. You just consider introduced one real value, lambda, real number you can say, and then add them together. Because just considering this one will be coming to a very good solution. Just you have to take this is a vector, right? This is a state vector, just only linear superposition. So if you try to find out the norm of this one, so that means if you try to take the scalar product with itself, that's what is the length of this one. Okay. Then it is for sure you know that any scalar product, that means inner product with itself, that's a square value comes, and that must be greater than equal to 0. And I think in the previous class, I think you remember that whenever you are operating on Kate vector R, now if you are taking complex conjugate, then you are having a bra vector, because complex conjugate of the Kate vector is bra, and then R will be R dagger. If it is a matrix formology, you know that conjugate transpose you have to take, and then plus I comes minus I, lambda real, and then again this is bra, and then this thing comes like this. So left hand side, if you just simply multiply each other, then what you get? Simply, you see, you are multiplying this one with this one first. Then what you get? That means psi R dagger R means it is R square and Kate psi. Similarly, you multiply this one with this one, then you get lambda square, a square expectation. And then the imaginary part, if you multiply each other, then you get another two terms. So that is just exactly equal to greater than equal to 0, which we have discussed in the previous class. So this is continued, then you little bit simplify that one. The last two terms you can just write in this compact form. First term is the variance of a square, and then second term lambda square is there, and b variance is there. And I lambda, if you just take common here between these two terms, I lambda, if you take common, then you can say that this is RS, this is SR, and subtraction. So that means you can say that their commutation relationship RS minus SR and its expectation. So that is what it is written. AB, I am writing instead of RS, we are writing AB because we have shown earlier that that will be equal. And this R square, it will be equal to A square, delta A square, and delta V square. So they are actually simply R square, if you just put down, that is just delta A square here and delta V square. So we are writing that thing. Now, this was in the previous class, a little bit typo error was there, I corrected here. So by minimizing the value of lambda, so this is the expression. So in this expression, you see you have lambda involves. Lambda if equal to 0, then gone. Everything is so simple. That's not the idea. So this is a quadratic equation of lambda, and left hand side, if you see, this is greater than or equal to 0. Whatever, it is arbitrary lambda values. Now, any lambda you consider, then that has to be considered so that this relationship has to be valid. So this relationship to become stronger, what we could try to find, if we can find what is the minimum value of lambda, we can consider. Okay, so left hand side, if you just consider, you want to minimize this left hand side. To minimize the left hand side, you should find a suitable value corresponding lambda, it will be minimum. So left hand side, if you just do derivative with respect to lambda, that means you get a 2 lambda delta V square variance, and then this is lambda will go, I this one, and this has to be equal to 0. From here you just find out lambda. So for this value, negative value is coming. For this value, actually you can expect that the left hand side will become minimum. So we substitute there, and once we substitute that one, I think it is just straightforward, and you just get this equation, right? So lambda value we substitute here, and lambda value substitute here, and simplify a bit, then you get this thing. So delta A square, delta V square, that means variance square, taking this side, and then this is minus 1/4, this one, expectation value as usual it will be there. So it is just directly coming from 101. Only thing is that you are substituting lambda here, so that it is actually strongest relationship you can consider. You cannot, you are not compromising anything with that. Now if you just take a square root, then you get this one I/2 and expectation AB. Okay, so this is the expectation, because psi is there, that's why expectation value comes. But thing is that we have to take because this value AB expectation value can be complex, average value can be complex, and then it can be plus minus or whatever comes, but we have to take modulation of that, because that thing actually ensures none of the values is negative. You are only calculating positive value, quantify positively. So that's why delta A, delta B you write. Just you have to take the mode. So this is very important to consider. Otherwise, some derivations you will find you will be troubled with minus and plus. So you have to consider the mode of this one. That means absolute value you have to take, expectation value and absolute value. Now if you see, if the commutator is constant for a given pair of operators, The expectation value, if these are constant, then you don't need to consider expectation. So sometimes some books, they will be writing without expectation, just simply this one equal to this one. They are actually, they are assuming that this expectation is average a b commutation, and then expectation that is constant over time. Okay, so then expectation value can be removed, otherwise you should maintain. So this is actually a very fundamental relationship of the quantum mechanics, and that is for operator, measurement, everything. So this principle has to be fulfilled, right? If you have questions for this slide, because these are the fundamental things, again and again we'll be using this formula for various interpretations. Okay, now let us try to see that our normal textbook, what we know about uncertainty principle, we try to establish this uncertainty principle for momentum and position using this formula. So that is what we discussed last time, that this is important for uncertainty principle here. So let us consider 1D uncertainty in 1D position and momentum of a quantum particle described by psi x. So one dimensional case, you are just looking the motion in one dimension along x direction. Other direction motion, if it is there or not, but that you are ignoring for the moment because you are not maintaining any conservation rules, etc. here. So it is just one dimensional, you are just observing along x direction what is happening. X direction momentum, x direction your position, right? Other direction, if variations are there, you don't care about that because ultimately you want the error in measurement. So this is very important conclusion, that what happens if there is a motion also along x y direction, but I don't care, I am just measuring only along x direction, that's it. So then this is fine. So what to do? I have to use the previous 105 equation, right? So 105, you just consider that x and px, they are actually two operators. One is position operator and another is momentum operator. So that is when I am writing within the box, then it is what? It is actually commutator. And what we do, whatever operator comes, commutator operator comes here, because it is xpx minus pxx, and then you just multiply with psi. That means whatever the commutating operator result, that you are operating on your state function, state vector. So that is what it is written like that. Now you know that from the very beginning we have described this momentum. Right? So for the first time when we introduced Schrodinger wave equation, the momentum operator we introduced like this in 3 dimension, right? Is equivalent to minus I h bar del. Del means del del x, del del y, del del z in 3 different direction because it is a vector. So it's like operator, right? A derivative basically. Okay, vector derivative. So if I try to see only x direction momentum operator, so x direction momentum operator, I will just pick only del del x. Other things we are not considering. Okay, px equal to minus h bar del del x. Now if you see, I have also used position operator. So position operator is representing just position. Basically, if you operate on a wave function with a position operator, that means you multiply the position and with the state vector. That's it. And it is a momentum, that means you have to operate with this one with a psi. So now you see, I am just in this 106, instead of px and x, I am just writing x operator corresponding x, and px means minus h bar del del x, and then psi is there, I am just writing psi here, first term. And second term, minus sign, minus I h bar del del x, and then this is the px, and then for x I am writing x and psi. Since both x and psi here, they are after del del x, that means the entire function has to be, you have to make some partial derivative with respect to x. So we are maintaining, even though it is one dimensional, we are still maintaining partial derivative with respect to x, because we know that psi is a function of t also. Psi can be a function of t, x and t. It's a time varying things are there also. So we maintain this partial derivative just to mean that psi is also function time dependent case also it is true. Okay. So now from here, if you do little maths here, just a little algebra, so you just simply multiply, and del psi del x you are just writing. Psi means your del x operator you are writing. And this one, you have to do some partial derivative again. It is two variable, x and psi. X is a function of x and psi also is a function of x. Right? So we get two terms. So first term we are getting, say, minus minus plus is there, I h bar, and then we just make derivative with respect to x, that is becoming 1. So we are writing psi, I h bar psi. So first term will be I h bar psi. And what about second things? So you have I h bar x, x we are keeping, and psi del x we are writing. So if you see these three terms, then this one and this one cancels. First term and third term, they are identical but opposite sign. So they cancels each other. So ultimately you are getting I h bar psi. Okay. So if you just compare this left and this one equal to this one, just extreme two terms, this one, you simplify it and you get this one. Now drop psi. So if you drop psi, that means the commutation relationship you get, xpx equal to IH bar. Okay. So this is considered for position operator along x and momentum operator along x. Similarly, if you just start for the y direction, you can write y, py also IH bar. Z, pz also IH bar. You can try to see what is happening to P. I think that can be taken, you can take as a home assignment, that what happens to Px, Py. So you are trying to get a commutation relationship between Px and Py. You can just, anyone can tell what would be the value?
Zero, zero, right?
Yeah, it will be 0. You check that one, whether just simply you just follow up, then you will be getting that thing. So that means they can commute each other. So you check that whatever value comes, I expect also that will be coming 0. I think I give to you as an assignment. So this is fine. Now use this thing where in equation number 105. So I know what is the commutation relationship, right? Now I know x equal to a and px equal to b. You are considering two operators, right? Then I can write x equal to a means it will be delta x, and px equal to b means it will be delta px, right? That's the variance. Delta a, the square root of variance, I would say. Delta a x, delta x, and delta px. And this is the commutation of x and px. What is that value? That is IH bar. IH bar, if you just multiply I, then it will be minus sign. So you get what? You get minus h bar by 2. Minus h bar by 2, but you have to take the mode. So that means what you will be getting? Delta x, delta px greater than equal to h bar by 2. So this is the famous uncertainty principle. So that is actually derived later on by Dirac, but Heisenberg first it is hypothesized, and he said that simultaneously you cannot measure momentum and position accurately. Okay, so if you, that means this is the thing, you are measuring momentum, and then what does it means? xpx, xpx, that means you are measuring momentum and then trying to find position. And other way, if you do, you are just trying to get a position and then momentum. They are not same. They are commuting, and their value is IH bar. And from there, what we get from this variance, whatever formula we have derived, so that's actually giving you the uncertainty relationship. So minimum value will be delta x, delta px will be h bar by 2. So normally sometimes in the exam, you will get that the value of momentum will be given, uncertainty in momentum will be given, and you will be asked what is the uncertainty in delta x. In that case, you just put equal sign and then you can calculate, because that is the minimum value, right? So if you use that with equal sign, I think that is fine, as long as they are saying that, okay, uncertainty in P is this one, what would be uncertainty in this? Okay, so in that case, from here, one important thing you can conclude that, suppose you measure momentum accurately. So that means what would be the value of delta px? Anyone?
0.
It will be 0. That means your position will be, in that case, uncertainty in position is infinity. So you will never be able to find the position accurately. That will be infinity. So minus x to plus x, anywhere it can be found, uncertainty is there. Similarly, other way, when you just try to find out your position accurately, your momentum is not, no way you can measure momentum accurately. There will be huge uncertainty, minus infinity to plus infinity. And also, I just you can just think of that the same thing. These are called x and px. When they are commuting like this, they are actually called canonically conjugate operator. So another conjugate operators are energy and time. You know, position and momentum, and it is actually they are canonically conjugate because you can imagine, you can recollect that they are actually related. Momentum and position, they are related through Fourier transform. You know, it's just some periodicity is there in momentum domain, then if you just do Fourier transform, then the position dependent thing you will be getting. So similarly, energy and time, or frequency and time, they are actually conjugate. So you can show that same relationship holds for energy and time. So if you try to measure your energy and accurately, then you should be certain that uh, which instant it will be observed or measured, that is actually, that cannot be found. That exact time stamp you will not be able to get. Energy you are measuring, but which time stamp you will not be able to predict. Okay, so that is what you can interpret from here. So you can consider this E means total energy. So this total energy, again, you can just a similar fashion, you can try to put from the Hamiltonian. You have to use the Hamiltonian, and then you can come to this important relationship also. This two relationship is very important. And as I said, that in future will be also coming similar type of relationship for electromagnetic wave also. Okay, so that will be actually very important and interesting also for photons. I will come to that point. So this derivation, that's why I thought that from the root it would be. I think there are different ways to derive this uncertainty principle, but I think this operator method and commutation method is the easiest one, and it is most understandable, and uh, you can visualize things better. Okay, now what? So now we have uncertainty principle that is very important. We'll be using for many applications, and that is the uncertainty means uncertainty in measurement, nothing else. Theoretically, you can always say that, okay, this much value, but all this because you are operating, and because of the operation, your measurement will be different, and that's why uncertainty question comes. And sometimes inherent uncertainty will be there things, and sometimes we say that our measurement, when we are measuring in quantum system, and the measuring instrument actually disturb the system, that is also itself is a part of the system. Measuring entire things, it is somehow changing the entropy thermodynamically, people try to explain a bit. So that is the, whatever the reasons, we have to accept that, and that is the. And here we are trying to understand that what happens time derivative of a expectation value. Expectation value means, suppose you want to measure, you have a operator, you operate, and you know that what is the expectation value, if you know the wave function nature, and then that expectation value, how that change with time. So how that change with time, to understand that, what you have to do, you have to do simply your derivative ddt with respect to time. So suppose you have an operator A and its expectation value is defined by like this, bra psi A ket psi. Now if you do with because you know this psi can be time dependent and this psi can be time dependent, but this A also can be time dependent. This operator also can be time dependent. We'll come to that point. Sometimes I think there are two different ways of considering. Sometimes you consider that, okay, operator is fixed, it's not time depend as a function of time, it does not change, only wave function evolves. That is one way. And another picture is that that is actually used that your wave function is fixed, that state won't change, but you can whatever time evolution that you can impose on the operator. Okay, so with that viewpoint we try to understand this one. So suppose you are taking derivative, that means you have what you are trying to do derivative, you have a bra vector here, and then here we have a operator, and then we have a psi. That means three variables you can consider, and you are assuming that all these three are time dependent, right? Time, and they can be position dependent, all those things you have to consider. Then what you do, the first time you try to understand this thing, this del subscript t means it is del t, that partial derivative we are doing, yeah? Del t psi bra, and this bra psi, you are making del t, and you are keeping A as it is, ket psi as it is. Next, bra I am keeping as it is, ket also I am keeping as it is, del t. This means del t A. And then third term as usual. So you are just keeping bra as it is, and operator as it is, and then del t. The simple algebraic way you are just following. Okay. Now you see, we know that from Schrodinger equation, if you just consider IH bar del t psi, that is actually Schrodinger equation, that's a Hamiltonian. IH bar del t psi in Kate formalism, and this is the Hamiltonian. Now considering fact that H is Hermitian, you know, Hermitian means if you are taking a, if your operator you are representing like a matrix, then the conjugate transpose if you take and it appears same, then it is called Hermitian. And Hamiltonian is a Hermitian. That's whatever things I think we can prove also that this Hamiltonian is always is Hermitian, because you have this whatever the total energy, kinetic energy, potential energy, that can be shown as a Hermitian. So now from here, this del t term, this del t, I will try to replace wherever del t coming here, I will try to replace from this equation. Okay. So left hand side I kept as it is. So right hand side del t psi and bra, del t psi, you are operating on bra vector. So if you just put down the first term, you are getting this one. Okay, because you see del t psi, that will be operating on ket, and then del t will be equal to this one. H term will come here. So you are operating here, your H will be added here, because H is there here if you just substitute here. Similarly, this one I keep as it is, because this operator, what is the things happening here, we don't know. So we are keeping as it is. Now again you are making a derivative for the ket vector, right? Time derivative, partial derivative of the ket vector. So time, this is actually as usual, directly you can just simply, if you just operate del t psi means H by H card by I and capital H psi. So you just put here, that means you are getting A is there, another H will be added here. So simply you are substituting from the Schrodinger equation directly. And A is arbitrary, it can be momentum, it can be anything, we'll come to that point later, any measurable operator. Okay, mathematically you are expressing. Now if you see the first term, left hand side I keep as it is, and right hand side if you look carefully, this one, first term and third term, if you just take a factor of I over age card, then you see first term is expectation for age A, and this one subtracting expectation for A age. From the associative law, you can just add them together. Then when you are adding them together, and you can put in a box. That means if they have a commutation relationship, you take a commutation, whatever operator comes, you take expectation of that one, psi and psi. So first term and second term together you can write like this. Okay, so this is very I think you might be wondering why all this procedure people are following, but ultimately you will get a very nice formula that is useful. Okay, so you wanted to get some results, and to get some results people just developed this type of things, straightforward way, and then coming to this point. Okay, so actually if you, as I said, that the operator can be time dependent, may not be time dependent. You can consider wave function is time dependent. In this particular case, we are considering that this operator A does not explicitly depend on time. For simplification, I will come to that time dependent operator change later on. That is actually Heisenberg picture. There is two pictures, Schrodinger picture and Heisenberg picture, and Heisenberg picture normally we can consider this time dependent operations. I will just come to that point. For the moment, you just consider that our operator is does not explicitly depend on time. So nothing wrong in it. As long as you just impose the evolution on psi, then no problem. Absolutely fine quantum mechanically. But for mathematical purpose, sometimes we can impose the time dependent operator and psi is fixed. That is just for mathematical simplification, just for getting your math easiness. For special cases, we can do that. Now that in that case, this second term will be 0 here, right? So since operator constant, so this is 0 and 0 expectation 0. So whatever 0 value you will be getting, expectation of 0 is 0, right? So first term will be there. First term is this thing. So this is a very, very important formula. So this equation is known as Ehrenfest's theorem. So you are taking a derivative of the expectation value of any given operator. That is actually, you see here, expectation value of their commutation of this operator. You are commuting with Hamiltonian. Any given operator, you commute Hamiltonian and their expectation and times I by h bar, that will be the value. Time derivative of the expectation is this one. This is actually Ehrenfest theorem. Actually, Ehrenfest was an Austrian, and later on he became Dutch citizen. But he was one of the oldest guy who was doing statistics and thermodynamics, and get involved into all the debates going on during 1920s among Schrodinger and Einstein, Niels Bohr. And he also get involved on that, and then he come out with this important formula that is called Ehrenfest theorem. Okay, so this Ehrenfest theorem will actually help us to relate quantum mechanics to our physical world, meaning classical measurement things or classical rules. Classically, suppose you have a wave function, you have a quantum particle you are describing with a wave function, and classically we know that any particle can move, its velocity, momentum, etc. is there, and here you have wave function, then how this wave function moving, etc., and how it is related to quantum particle type things, because you know that this quantum mechanics, that actually is the it's actually considered to be the universal law of motion. Okay, you don't need any other other laws, Newton's classical law, all those type of things you don't need. You can approximate quantum Schrodinger wave equation or quantum mechanical equations for your macroscopic object also, and that will be also equally valid. But since macroscopic object, you can use our regular usual maths, usual formula, everything, and we are used to it. Normally people used to do that, but whenever for quantum particle things are there, then we are coming that way. Otherwise that there is no difference. People keep that, since it's invention, people keep on trying to show that this is the quantum mechanics gives everything, entire picture, including macroscopic picture of any object or any system, I would say. So now we will be using this thing to come to certain physical parameters. Let us consider first that you know that you are getting a expectation value of position. Suppose if I write this is expectation x, and within bracket that is actual expectation of this one. Now if this expectation, that position, if I take a derivative, what you supposed to get? Expectation, you know, because of the probability density, etc., because psi is something you cannot measure, so probability density, and whenever probability density, again you are just making projection with the position, then you can find what is the value, and then you get expectation value. But that expectation value you can get also the time derivative. So that is one thing you can try to find, how you can find that this thing that can be considered as a velocity, right? Rate of change of position, average position, expectation value, rate of change of expectation value, okay, of the position. And then similar thing also, rate of change of momentum as well. These are the two things frequently used in Newton's law, no? Classically. So you know, velocity and rate of change of momentum is the force. So normally rate of change of momentum is the measure of force, right? Second law of motion. So we can try to find out these two things from this Ehrenfest theorem. So again, we just consider this one-dimensional case, right? 1D case of a system, particle, quantum particle, and then Hamiltonian you can just consider. This just for visualization purpose, it is easier. Otherwise, three-dimensional case also would give the same results, but unnecessarily it makes complication. We want to just show the fundamental things. So one-dimensional things, if you prove, that is true for the three-dimensional case also. Just you have to extend the dimension. So in one dimension, you know, that's Hamiltonian operator. It's a momentum operator square plus potential energy operator. This is a potential operator, right? Now then we try to find out this value, because I want to get a expectation value, rate of change of expectation value, and I want to see that whatever expectation value I am trying to get, I want to see the commutation relationship of the Hamiltonian. Why is that? Because of this formula here, this Ehrenfest theorem. That commutation formula, if you know how it commutes with the Hamiltonian, then actually you can find out what is the time derivative of the expectation. Okay, so you try to find out first the commutation with respect to Hamiltonian, h comma x commutation, position operator, and then you see that means I can write h operator x minus x operator h, right? So we are just trying to write again. We know that Hamiltonian is equal to this one, and x operator is basically x. Directly you can put. So you write h and then x, and then you have a psi. Psi is just imposing one wave function so that you can operate, and psi is arbitrary, again, arbitrary wave function, any wave function for a quantum particle system. Okay, so we write the first term is complete, and second term minus x times h. So minus x times h operator, and then we are putting psi. So I am trying to find out how it is commuting with the Hamiltonian, how the position operator commuting with the Hamiltonian. That is my goal now. So Now I put left hand side as it is, and if you just think about that, this is second derivative, partial derivative x is there. Vx you are considering something simple variable as a function of x, so it can be simply multiplied with this one. But second derivative is there, but here you have two variables. X itself is a function of x and psi also function of x. Okay, so if you do that, that means you will get two terms, right? And another interesting thing is that if you just multiply it v xi, v times xi, and here you see this minus x and vx psi, if you multiply, that means the potential term will be cancelled each other from the entire. So this term and this term will be cancelled, right? So then I will have to expand this one. This one I have to find out second order derivative with x and psi. Okay, so that is what we are trying to write here, that it will be, did I miss anything? Yeah, so I am writing this thing del xi, that means this one, and this one I am writing x, I am just writing here h card square 2m x psi. So the potential part is cancelled, that has been removed from here, from 116. The first term here with, and we have to operate with x and psi, and this one you have to operate only with psi because x outside. Okay, now you just expand this one h bar square by 2m del x, and then you see I just putting del x. First I am making a derivative of this one, and one derivative I kept aside, right? So x, I keep x first, and then I just do derivative with psi, and then psi I do derivative with respect to x, that means 1. So I will be getting, after first derivative I will be getting this thing. And then right hand side, it has to be second order derivative with respect to psi, as it is I am writing x multiplied by del 2 del x2, and then psi just would be added. Whatever psi value I don't know, but I can keep it as it is. Let's see what happens. Okay, now again you have to do derivative this one again. So if you do derivative, and then what will get, if you just do first this derivative del x, that means 1, right? So that means you will be getting minus h cut square by 2m del psi del x, right? One part will be there, and same thing if you do here, another del psi del x will be there. So that's why simplifying this one I get two terms, and another terms will be there, and whatever the value coming here I'm just directly writing here. So here two terms, and here two, here actually three terms will be there, because this will give you two terms and this one another term. These three terms will clubbed into two terms will be added, and another terms will be there, because x if you keep, then del 2 psi del x2 will be there, and this one as it is. Now you see here second term you multiply with this one, that is negative things exactly like this, which is positive, so that will be cancelled. So this term and this term cancelled, so only this part is remaining. If you multiply this one, this is remaining, so this is nothing but this one, h card square by m minus sign of course del psi by del x. Now do little bit of trick here. So what you do, okay, left hand side I keep as it is here, minus h card square h bar square by m and del psi del x, that is what finally I have written. Then I do that, I just multiply I two times. Okay, you have a minus sign, so I put minus sign as it is. I put IH and another I and minus I, if I multiply, that will be 1. I and minus I, if you multiply, that means minus I square you are just happening, that will be basically 1, right? So I put like this. Why is that? Because we know this is the momentum operator, minus in one dimension. In one dimension momentum operator is minus I h bar del x. And that is a momentum operator, since partial derivative with respect to x, that should be momentum operator for the x component. So I write minus I h bar m, and within the bracket whatever is there, that is a momentum operator, and psi. Now this psi and this psi cancel. So if this side and this side cancels, then you get the how it is commuting with the x. So that means you are actually, you commute Hamiltonian with position operator, you get momentum operator, momentum eigenvalue. That's the beauty here. You just commute with Hamiltonian position, you commute with Hamiltonian, you get the momentum, right? So, but that is the one thing. But most important part is that we have to go back to see Ehrenfest theorem, how it comes. So Ehrenfest theorem means this one. We'll be just putting, that means A is x now here, right? And their commutation value I know, whatever the value will be there. And then here I can put x. That means once I put x here, that means expectation value of the x. And once I get this one, how it is commuting with h, the position vector, then I can get this here, expectation I can find out. So that is what we want to do here. Okay, just comparing equation 121, that means previous equation, that's the commutation rule, and 115 means that is a Ehrenfest theorem. If we put that, this thing, if you put there, and then you get this value. Because in Ehrenfest theorem, here it is momentum will come, momentum psi, momentum and bra, momentum px and psi. That means expectation of the momentum. So right hand side you are getting expectation of the momentum. Left hand side you are getting the position expectation and rate of change. So rate of change means you are getting this value dxt. Sometimes ddt can be taken inside the expectation value. So this is the formula we get. That is actually classical formula, right? So you are getting position expectation, that is quantum mechanically you are finding expectation of position, right? And its derivative is nothing but expectation of momentum divided by m. That means it is simple, dx by dt equal to momentum by mass. That's the velocity, right? So that's interesting. So I get directly related to our classical things. Only thing is that you have to use your expectation value here. No other difference. So now try to find out the rate of change of momentum as I promised earlier. So dp by dt. So again, if I want to see from the Ehrenfest theorem that the rate of change of momentum, that means I have to have this momentum operator, how it is commuting with the Hamiltonian. So again, I am considering your x direction, one dimension, hpx. So same fashion I am writing h, that means Hamiltonian operator, this is Hamiltonian operator. Of course, this v is the potential, it's a function of x. I've just, because of the space crunch, I have omitted x. But you should keep in mind that this potential is, we have considered, so far we are considering potential is time independent, only position dependent. Okay, so position dependent potential, and then your kinetic energy part, two operators added together, that's Hamiltonian, and then px. Px, that means h px psi. So h is this one, and px and psi multiplied. That's the first term. And whenever you are commuting minus, right? So you have minus pxh, and in px you have another minus sign comes, that's why it is plus. Okay, so minus a plus I h bar del x. That means this is px I am written. Okay, I am done with a px, and minus sign will be cancelled, and then I am writing h. So this is px and this is h, and with h I have already multiplied the operator psi. Psi already I have taken inside. So px h psi. So I have already operated with Hamiltonian first, then we have to do momentum operator, how it comes. But here you have to, I have already done with the momentum operator here. I have operated on this. Now I want to see the Hamiltonian operator, the first term, right? And then we simplify a bit. Then you have this one, the left hand side I keep as it is. And here you see one thing. So this part, if you just operate on this momentum operator, that means you get third order derivative, partial derivative with respect to x. And this one, if you see, you will be getting also third order derivative and same term. Same thing, only opposite sign. Is that correct? A minus minus, it will be plus, but here it will be minus. So this term, this first term and first term will be cancelled. Right? So if that is cancelled, then what is left in this thing? B minus I h bar, B function of x I have just put down here, and del psi del x and I h del x. Now this is gone. Now what is there? V psi. This V psi, again, V is a function of x, psi is also function of x. If V is not constant, if it is V is a constant, so you take V outside. But V, we are keep on considering that can be a function of x. For a certain region, it can be constant also, like a quantum well. We are considering it is anyway, it is x as a whole, entire system we are looking into it. So a certain point potential can be constant, but some other region, some different constant value. So this way, that's why it is fair enough to write V as a function of x. So then you have to do 2 times partial derivative, right? 2 variables. So if you do 2 variables, you get these 2 things. First you keep a V and derivative of psi with respect to x. Then you keep psi. Psi I kept right hand side. You could write this side because it is anyway, once it is operated, it's a simple multiplication. So I h card del v del x and psi. So these 3 terms, if you just compare again, first term and second term cancels each other. That's a minus plus, cancels each other. So this is left over. So now again, you, this to this you compare, you just remove psi. You drop the psi. Now psi function gone. Psi is no more important for us now. We want to see what is the value of how they are commuting, what is their commutation relationship. This commutation psi is just considered as just a kind of guinea pig like things, just to use what would be the outcome. So HPX equal to I h car del v del x, right? So now you put this one again in the Ehrenfest theorem in 115. That again, go back to that one. So this one. So that means I am just writing HPX here. HPX, if I just write, and here I will be writing PX, momentum. That means expectation of momentum, rate of change of momentum. So I am getting rate of change of momentum expectation. And right hand side, that is again whatever the commutation comes, that is under expectation value, del v del x, I h cut, and there will be I by h cut will be there, they will be cancelled. Here if you see I by h cut, they will be cancelled and 1 minus sign will be there. So can you remember what is this equation? This is actually your Newton's law. Rate of change of momentum is the negative derivative of the potential. Like what you know in case of electromagnetic field also. If you have a potential difference between 2 points, there is a potential difference there, then you know you are writing E, electric field equal to minus dV dx, or electric field equal to minus negative gradient of the potential difference, potential. So same thing we are getting, whatever we expect for classical things, only here expectation value you have to put. So that means this is nothing. This is something we can show that actually whatever we are using for a microscopic object, that can be scaled up for a macroscopic object. Also, in that case, your expectation value will be as usual. Whatever measurement, expectation value will not, variance will not be that much. That means uncertainty will not be that much, because whenever you are going for uncertainty for a microscopic scale, when delta x and delta px is very small, then only it will be comparable to the h card. H card is H value is very small, 6.626 into 10 to the minus 34. So only when the microscopic object, their position is in that order, then only this type of variation matters. Otherwise, macroscopically, it's fine. So this is the thing I wanted to discuss for today. I can stop here. So I hope everything you are getting. I think keep on asking questions if anything is there. In between, you can stop me. I think I'm not sure that you are not asking me any question in between. I assume that you are all understanding. Okay. With this, I stop here. Thank you.